Board. Okay, so Sydney is the most populated of all the Australian cities with a population of about 4.5 million. It is located on a beautiful harbour and has many beaches, including the famous Bondi Beach on the one side and on the other the Blue Mountains. Sydney is a great place to jump on a ferry and enjoy a day on the harbour, to stroll around the historic Rocks area or the vibrant Darling Harbour. It's a wonderful place to swim, surf or sail in the summer months, as well as enjoy usual activities like visiting the many art galleries, museums, theatres, the famous Sydney Opera House, cinemas, bowling alleys, or to be involved in any sport that might take your fancy, although unfortunately we don't play ice hockey. Sydney enjoys warm, sometimes quite hot summer months during December through to February, and has quite cool winters during the middle of the year, with the daytime low being between about 10 and 20 degrees. It is cooler, however, out this way in Campbelltown, southwest of the city. The University of Western Sydney has 6 campuses spread across Sydney. The Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery is based on the Campbelltown campus to the southwest of the city. It is home to the largest urban Indigenous population in Australia, which includes the traditional Aboriginal groups of Darug and Tharawal. There is a train station within the campus itself, and it has a direct line into the heart of the city. It takes about 45 minutes. The train line passes through the domestic and the international terminals. There is a large shopping mall within a 10-minute walk of the medicals building, with gold-class cinemas, bowling alleys, restaurants and cafes, as well as general shopping. The campus itself has a few cafes, a large library, outdoor eating areas, and is surrounded by ponds with lots of local ducks and birds, and the occasional rabbits and kangaroos. There is also a large residential college with 24-hour security for those students who prefer to live on campus whilst undertaking the course. There is a free shuttle bus that runs between the campus and Campbelltown Hospital, which is one of our clinical locations. The campus itself has 24-hour security 7 days a week. The Australian dollar is very similar to the Canadian dollar, and in fact I think the Canadian dollar is about $1 to our 95 cents at the moment, so you're running a little stronger. The cost of living is probably very similar as well, although I can provide you with more information on that later. The MBBS course is a 5-year undergraduate program, with the first 2 years being based on campus and the last 3 years predominantly within the clinical environment. There is scope to undertake 1 year within a rural clinical school, either Lismore, which is on the north coast of New South Wales, located next to some gorgeous beaches, or in Bathurst, which is kind of outback, not on the coast at all. So in terms of the course content itself, I'm going to hand you over to Anne-Marie and Professor Hennessy, and she's going to give you some information about that. So I'll swap chairs with you, Anne-Marie.
That's a good idea. So welcome everybody. I'm Anne-Marie Hennessy. Look, what's exciting about the MBBS course that's offered by the University of Western Sydney is that it has an immersion model of training, as well as deeply embedded in research skills, which Professor Corson will talk to you about shortly. I had a clinic last week. I'm there seeing patients. I do renal medicine as well as blood pressure medicine, and the first year students get to sit in on that clinic and be part of the clinical experience as they build a clinical skill set across the first 2 years, with 1 day in the hospital every week. As they're studying blocks of basic sciences, everything from full spectrum systems biology to their neuroanatomy to pharmacology, population health, and other aspects of basic sciences in the early part of the course, but deeply embedded in clinical sciences, clinical skills and professionalism and development of patients' needs. In years 3, 4 and 5 of the course, it's more traditional style teaching with students based, as Lyndall has indicated to you, in one of 2 principal clinical training locations, but we actually have students at 57 locations across New South Wales on any day of the week. The 5-year course has other opportunities to do more extensive research for those that are interested, and that means the students can take an extra year between year 2 or 5 and do a Bachelor of Medical Research, and we also have the capacity to offer a combined degree program with a PhD and an MBBS embedded across a 6 7 or 8 year program, depending on which of those options you might choose. So that gives you a pretty good overview. The course was designed to be an out-of-school course, so that those school leavers who are very keen, committed, ready and able to go into medicine can come in straight away. It's interesting that our course has a very solid reputation, both nationally and internationally, and we're finding that they're very competitive spots in medicine, and a lot of our students enter with a year or two of science. So we have quite a mix of skills in the students who are coming into the course, but it is designed to support students who come straight out of school, and we can provide everything that's needed to complete the MBBS as it's available in Australia. Okay, so that just gives you an outline. I might hand over now to Professor Corson, who'll talk to you about the research opportunities at UWS School of Medicine. Thanks. Yes.
Okay, as you can hear, I am Canadian, and I'll do this from a bit of a personal perspective. I'll just clarify one thing, because the terminology is a little different. When Anne-Marie talks about school leavers, she means that you can get into the program directly out of high school with the appropriate grades. To clarify a couple of things Lyndall said, all the ice hockey is actually televised, and when she talks about it being a little colder out here, from a Canadian perspective, that's very cute. So I'll sort of do this from a personal perspective so you understand the level of research I'm talking about. I've had the opportunity to work at some of the best places in the world, the Max Planck Institute, the National Institutes of Health in the US, and in fact I was recruited here from the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Calgary, which is one of Canada's third or fourth strongest research institutions. I can honestly say that in the research wing in this building, there have been no corners cut. We actually have a world caliber facilities. There's nothing here that I can't do that I couldn't do anywhere else. We're recruiting some of the best students, both nationally and internationally. The program has grown in leaps and bounds at a scale that the older medical schools are actually shocked by. That goes both for the quality of our medical graduates and for our PhD graduates. I will tell you from the heart that if I had to do it all over again, if I was your age, I would actually be targeting an MD PhD, or here it's an MBBS, not an MD, it's the same degree. The combined degree, the medical degree with a PhD, affords you a level of flexibility and likely of demand for you that will place you so far ahead of your peers. And by coming to the program here, you also place yourself well ahead of your peers temporally. That is, you would complete a combined degree approximately 10 years ahead of any of your peers in Canada. That's assuming they ever even got into medical school, and we all know how difficult that is, and it's getting worse in Canada, in my opinion. So in terms of research, world-class, international caliber, across the spectrum from population health to molecular studies. If you're interested, we can probably fill your area of interest. We probably have somebody working on it, and we invite you to ask us more questions about that. Thanks.
Yes, I'll just, one moment. I can do the typing for you. Before I go any further, I neglected to introduce to any of the students who may have logged on this evening that KOM is your Canadian representative, and they can certainly assist you with any inquiries or with the process of applying to UWS Medicine. And they have a free toll number, which is 1-877-318-8203, or you can email them at info@comconsultants.com. So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about very briefly before we have any questions is the criteria for an international student applying for the Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. And essentially for Ontario, it's an 89% with the high school.
I think it depends on a balance with IB and other things, so
approximately
89.
Approximately 89, which is equivalent to our 95.5 ATAR, which is the Australian Tertiary Admission Rank. And also there's the English proficiency. So that will depend on whether English is the first language, whether you've studied in English for 5 years immediately prior to the application, or whether you've sat an exam like IELTS. but we can accommodate all of those. The Central International Application Team at the University of Western Sydney actually processes the applications, but I could assist you with any inquiries that you might have along those lines as well. So is there any questions anybody has for us? Just going to take about 15 seconds. Yes, I can.
Just read the question back.
The question that's been posed is, can you go over the entry requirements for students having university studies in their background? If an applicant has partially completed a university degree, we can look at the GPA, and essentially we're looking at a distinction average. If someone's actually completed the course, the GPA can be slightly lower. Grade point average. GPA, sorry, is grade point average. So we can take those into consideration, and we'll actually take whatever's higher, whether it's the high school results or the partially completed university degree. Otherwise, we'd look at the completed GPA, grade point average. So if it's a 7 scale, we'd be looking at about 5.6 for a completed degree or higher.
And I can just add to that, if you like, that we have no prerequisites for the course, so that can be a standard of learning in any subjects at high school and a range of subjects in university studies. We do tend to find, I'll just refer to Professor Corson's here, that students who have limited background in chemistry do struggle a little bit with concepts about cells and membranes and etc. So that some students who've not done any background in chemistry particularly find that they do a bit of bridging preparation for the early parts of the course, but that's not a prerequisite to get in.
One of the questions... Oh, yes. Yes, apologies for that glitch. One of the questions that was raised was the issue of ISAT. ISAT does form a mandatory part of the application process. It will depend from year to year on the number of applicants that we receive and the number of spaces we have available as to how much emphasis is placed on the ISAT, but it is part of the application process. So I'll wait for any other questions.
I might just talk a little more about the course, if you like, while we're waiting for you to think through your questions. When and how can I apply now? So Lyndall can take that question.
Hello, Sue. Yes, we're very happy to take applications immediately, and we can process them straight away. We're even in a position to offer conditional offers. Therefore, if someone, for example, has met the English criteria and they're predicted to meet the academic rank that's required, we can extend an unconditional offer to that applicant. And for those who have in fact already met the requirements, we can extend a formal unconditional offer of a place in the program to commence in February next year.
So we just need to clarify that it takes time to process applications and to do primary validation of scores, and to have, if there is any issues that we need to raise with the university about score equivalence and things, those things take a little time, I'm presuming. Yeah. Lyndall's nodding.
Yes, that's correct, yes. There you go. So for all the students that are online, if you contact your KOM consultants, they can assist you with that process. You don't have to wait till August, you can apply right now. In fact, I would encourage you to go to the University of Western Sydney, www.uws.edu.au/international, and you'll be able to get all the information and forms that you need from there. How much? Well, the 5.6 GPA is equivalent to the 89% school leaver. I guess that's the best way I can answer. There was a question, how much is 5.6 grade point average percentage-wise? It equates to 89% for the Ontario high school result.
So I was just going to take the opportunity while you're thinking of questions just to reiterate the experiential parts of the course, and that is in fourth year we offer a spectrum of obstetrics training that includes delivering babies. We do paediatric training at some of the biggest paediatric services within Sydney, and that covers a very wide spectrum of paediatric conditions, and we do quite a lot of both hospital and community mental health. So that the sorts of training that we get in an Australian career would set you up for future medical work in any of the internal medicine specialties, the full range of surgical specialties, orthopaedic surgery or whatever, rehabilitation medicine, as well as in those areas I mentioned, mental health, paediatrics or child health, and women's and children's health. So I've got a question now. How many seats are available? How are interviews conducted? Residency, question mark, and how does this work with CDNs? I don't know what a CDN is. So if you can just tell me what CDN stands for. Canadians work with Canadians, I guess. Is that right? Look, we have 100 spots that are funded for Australian residents by the Australian government, and we have the capacity to take up to 20 international students into the other places that are available. They would be competitively offered to the highest ranking students based on the academic scores. At the moment we don't conduct interviews for international students, but that will be something that will feature in entry over the next 2 to 3 years. That's really about the technicalities of us doing that as a relatively new school. It's a complex process on the other side of the planet, as you can imagine, to try and manage interviews that are fair, and we will be doing some of that, you know, as I said, in the coming couple of years or so. In terms of residency, you can't be an Australian resident and take one of the international spots. There are legal and regulatory environments that don't allow that, so we have very clear positions that are available to Australian residents, and that's a different entry criteria because it's linked to the way government fund those positions, and they are an interview that has to be done in Australia at a preset time, because that's expected to offer to Australians who are living here and they come here for those interviews. So that would need to go down that pathway if someone was a resident prior to being offered a position in the spot. And the Canadians are treated identically to other international students in Australia, and again that's a regulatory framework that requires us to treat every country the same, so there are no special pathways. We do have pathways that we're negotiating with our university and high school partners in Canada to facilitate knowledge exchange and even other opportunities around research and other transition courses that you may be interested in preparation for medicine. Those are under negotiation on an institution by institution basis. But the spots in the MBBS are highly controlled by rigorous criteria that are applied to every single applicant. So I hope that answers that question. Canadians, I've got that, that's great. I wonder how you would weight GPA from graduate schools. We've already answered that question, we've had that one before. We don't weight them, they're a simple a transfer or assessment of equivalence. It's the assessment of equivalence that we're interested in. Not all countries use a GPA either, so there are some countries around the world where we have to work with IB and others, you know, the International Baccalaureate and other kinds of marks, where we are looking for a summary of how the equivalence is worked out, and that's quite a complicated process depending on how the marks were treated at the course. Some of the groups that struggle with entry into medical courses around the world, and this is not unique to us, are courses where they don't actually provide graded marks. And there's nothing we can do about that. Without a graded mark that indicates excellence in terms of study and academic rigour, we use those marks as a surrogate for how you can apply yourself to your work how you can take on a broad workload, and therefore we, in a competitive course, obviously would rank according to the ways that those marks indicate to us your capacity to apply yourself to one of the most complex and heavy academic university programs that you could imagine, which is true of medicine studied anywhere. I think that's fair to say.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
The other thing is, for Ingrid, with your question, if you do have any transcripts already, you're welcome to email them to me and we can get those assessed against our scheduled criteria. So my email address is l.mcculloch, that's MCCULLOCH, @uws.edu.au, and as I say, I'd be very happy to have a look at any transcripts and give you some feedback individually through email.
So the next question we've got there is, how does UWS offer a 5-year program when other Australian schools offer 6-year direct entry MBBS? It's actually a more complex question than that. There are now 19 courses in Australia, and they are all slightly different. Some of them offer very strong rural parts to the program. Some of them offer a whole year off. So the other 6-year program in the Sydney Basin, to which I'm not going to tell you too much, I don't know that much about their program other than to say that they do a whole year of research that stretches them out to the 6th year. We actually embed our research within the curriculum, and we have a longer academic year than most medical schools. So we study from, apart from the very first year when you start in March, most of our academic years begin at the end of January, and we use that additional time to get the work done in a 5-year time frame. So we actually have quite a lot of research that's embedded in the course, and for those students who are interested in a unique research experience and some lab-based research, which we don't offer in the program, they would step out for that year and graduate with a Bachelor of Medical Research and the MBBS, doing that laboratory type year or a year of more general research, specific research. So just hand you over to Yen.
Yeah, no, just in terms of the details there, the best example in Canada would be actually Calgary, which has a shorter medical program overall than other universities, but they're basically going at it almost a full 12 months of the year.
Yeah.
So same idea.
And we deliberately set that up because we were keen to produce doctors for a part of the city that was desperate for doctors. So we worked with government about creating a program that was acceptable, in fact excellent, and met the Australian Medical Council's accreditation criteria for a fully fledged medical degree, enough research to get a taste for it and have some basic research skills, and be able to work anywhere in the world. And we think we've struck that balance. And our graduates, are giving us feedback. We've now had 4 graduating classes, and our graduate feedback is that they're very well prepared, well liked, and they're getting on a full range of specialty training programs after they exit from our course here: neurosurgeons, paediatricians, internal physicians, and researchers as well. The next question is, how many positions do we offer for the MD, PhD? That's not limited. So if we had dozens of applicants and their programs were worthwhile, Professor Corson's is getting all excited over there, we would be able to offer them. It really links to the quality of the program and the supervision and the students' wishes and how they manage it. I do need to say to you that they are very intensive programs. I agree with Professor Corson, and had I had an opportunity to do such a thing, I would have jumped at that as a medical student some years ago. But they are programs that are very heavy, and the clinical training is also a strong part of that program. So students need to balance where they feel they're up to in their clinical training when they're making decisions about not only the course of material that they wish to study in their research component, but how the timing of that works for them and their progression through the course. So it's a bit organic, and we'd be open to discussing the opportunities that if you wanted to discuss those with us.
I'll just add that there's a bit of the program prides itself for very good reason on a certain amount of flexibility being built into it. So when it comes to the MD PhD, there is flexibility about whether some of that is embedded, so that you're doing part of your medical program, then a PhD, and then returning to the medical program, or which is probably a better option for a lot of people, you can do all of one first and all of one second. So there is flexibility built in, and even a little more flexibility than that. So
fantastic.
I hope that answered your question, Ingrid. There's another one here from Udani, and I apologise if I've mispronounced that, asking whether we require reference letters and personal statements. That's actually not part of our admission criteria at this point, so no, you don't need to provide those.
some university medical schools in Australia do. They're all different. All 19 courses are completely different and run their own criteria based on their own progression and feedback and the quality of their own graduates, etc. So our program is as it's stated on the website and as Lyndall has explained to you today. So no, we don't require those at present. The interview is the only thing we don't require at the moment, but I've flagged that is something that we're looking at, the logistics of being able to do that, both so you can get to know us and we can get to know potential graduates and have a point of communication, as well as to be sure that we're getting the best quality students into the course.
Okay, so we've answered all the questions that are showing at the moment. Does anyone have anything further?
Well, I think we've made some contact points both through Lyndall. Professor Corson and I are more than happy to check for emails. I get many emails, and it's actually quite hard for me to track them. So if you don't get a response from me, my sincerest apologies. Just CC Lyndall and Professor Corson, and we'll get the information out to you as quickly as we can.
I've already told KOM as well that I'll be back in mid-June, and I'm actually from down the street. I'm from St. Catharines, and if necessary, I'm more than happy to come to KOM and do anything face-to-face if any of you would prefer a conversation that way.
Fantastic. And we also, do you want to just allude to the fact that we're planning a visit to parts of North America, and particularly Canada, in late October, early November, and so we'll let you know those dates through the contact points.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to remind any potential students out there to contact either Sue Dorman or Martin Kelly at KOM Consultants if they need, who would be happy to help you with any application process. The rain has stopped. Yes, and absolutely. The rain has, I'm happy to say, the rain has stopped in Sydney, and we're looking forward to a week of sunshine.
It's 25 today, kids.
It's beautiful.
And we think it's a bit cold. I've got my jacket on. I tell you, it's cold. I don't know what you're telling me, yes?
All right, well, thank you so very much for your time. I hope this has been helpful, and please feel free to contact us if you need any further information. Bye.
Ciao.